Okay, it's close enough. It's 9 o'clock on February the 23rd, 2015. I call the Commissioners Court to order. Today we have Mike Cummings from Second Baptist Church giving the invitation. You will come forward. Stand up, please. Remain standing for the pledge.
Let's pray together. Lord, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the weather outside. And Lord, we know that you are the creator of all things, and you do control the weather. We thank you, Lord, for the warm times, but we also thank you for the cold times. Lord, for without change, we would not know the difference. Thank you, Lord, you are sovereign in all. Thank you for your personification in your Son, Jesus Christ, the one and only Savior of our souls. Watch over us now as we commit ourselves to the task at hand today. Help us to seek justice with clarity and resolve, to love kindness with charity and wisdom, to serve our community with humility and impartiality. As trusted servants, we seek your blessings on our deliberations and our efforts today. May we act wisely and well to promote the common good and equally represent all members of our community. Bless our efforts on the task before us today. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. In all that we are, we give to you. Forgive us, Lord, for our shortcomings. Bless us in our efforts today. And in your Son's name, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, first order of business is approval of minutes from the February 9th, 2015 Putnam County Commissioners Court meeting.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second. A motion and second. All in favor, raise your hand. Vouchers. To consider and act upon the approval of the payment of vouchers processed by the County Auditor's Office for the period of February 4th, 2015 through February 18th, 2015. Checks number 160583 through 160822 and wire transfers 504 through 510. Then the total amount of $3,955,212.52.
I move that Commissioners Court approve the vouchers as presented.
Second. Any questions?
I do have one question. Carrie, page 20 of 28, wire number 510, line item, the Bank of New York, roughly 1.9 million interest payment. I just want to confirm that's for the debt. Yes. Okay. All right, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. 0. Number 3, the insurance report. Kay, do you have anything you want to specifically talk about?
No, there's nothing remarkable on the insurance report.
Okay. So recognized from that. Number 4, the time clock plus, to hear a report on time clock plus and take any action necessary.
We are currently involved in stage 4 of the implementation process. I'll pass around the narrative to catch everyone up. Again, we're currently involved in stage 4 of the implementation. That consists of records management, county clerk, district clerk, and jury has been included in stage 4. The implementation packets have been provided to the department heads and are due back to payroll today. Training for stage 4 departments has already been scheduled, and you'll see that training schedule listed in the narrative there. County clerk is scheduled for the 27th of this month. Records management, district clerk, and jury are all scheduled on the 3rd of March, and go live for stage 4 is scheduled for March 9th. The implementation packets for stage 5, which consists of the extension office, fire and rescue, road and bridge, and maintenance, are scheduled for distribution on or before the 18th of March. It just depends on how the payroll schedules fall and how large those payrolls are, as far as when she can schedule the training and distribution. But we've got it set up for distribution on or before the 18th. The training schedule will be adopted when the implementation packets for that stage are distributed. Both county attorney and district attorney have, over the course of time, expressed intent to participate or interest in participation. And so we are planning to stage those two departments as in a stage of their own. We also plan to insert that stage prior to Sheriff's Office and Detention Center, because the Sheriff's Office and Detention Center, as we've discussed before, is large, very large, and the complexity of the payroll and processes involved for those departments. We plan to stage those two as the final 2 stages, so we will move those back. We will coordinate with Sheriff Thomas and his staff as we get closer to implementation for the final 2 stages. The remaining departments that in the past have not expressed intent to come on board, and those departments are listed there, will be approached again. And I anticipate that we will have some of those departments voluntarily come on at that time.
For the record, I have not been approached, so approach away.
Not yet.
Okay.
We had approached county judge and law library
Okay,
previously.
yeah, because I definitely want to be on that.
Of those final ones that you just noted, of course, our county judge, it just seems like very interested in probably participating. Are there any cons at all in regards to those that you list as important?
Initially, we did have 3 departments that specifically had declined. And again, they will be approached. The only ones that have specifically declined were County Court of Law 2, and constables 1 and 3, and then juvenile probation. We originally approached specifically declined. The others just failed to respond.
Any specific reasons that they've noted that they did not want to participate?
No, sir. They just.
Is there any way we can make it mandatory? I mean,
Well, I mean, legally speaking, you can say, here's the time clock, and you need to use it. You know, you set personnel rules, I mean, it's a practical matter, you're gonna have some flack about it, let's face it. But you should be able to, I think I'm right about this, you should be able to say, look, we're implementing this place, and we like all employees to use it, but some of these elected officials, they do have a measure of independence over their own employees, but this may be something that you could say, but again, I see the problem as being practical. They just may refuse, and then what do you do?
Does First Strings have any,
I don't know, that's a good question. I mean, that's something, I mean, I think you need to approach it diplomatically, let's put it that way.
That being said, since the majority of those departments just didn't respond initially, the hope is that as we move along in this process and get departments on and things are going smoothly, some of those that chose not to respond initially will, of their own accord, come on as we approach them again.
And Kay, do we expect to have all of these stages completed before the end of this fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be really nice to have everybody on board.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you very much. We don't need to vote on anything, right? Just recognize, okay. Okay, number 5, treasurer's report. To recognize the monthly treasurer's report.
Okay, as you know, it's been busy times, but thank goodness we got through our tax season, and we'll give you an update on that here in just a little bit. Our totals this morning, Emerald National Bank and our checking account is $6,192,139.28. And tax pool, which is earning 5 this morning, is $9,397,086.02. Our tax pool prime, which is earning 8, is $12,026,524.81. And we have $7 million in Cedars at this time. So our grand total of cash in our general fund is $34,615,750.11. Basically, this morning we have $23.8 million in the overall checking account, not just general, but the entire total. We have been collateralized at a little over 45 during our tax season. We have now released enough that we're down to 37. And so we will continue to, bring that down too, since now all our major numbers have come through. And Tamara's here for Sherry, and I'll let her come and tell you where we are with the taxes.
We're up by 0.75%, at 93.72% from last year.
Good, how'd you do that?
Spreadsheet.
How'd you get the pay?
They're nice people, and everybody wanted to come see.
Everybody wanted to do tax office this year. And on the last day, too.
On the last
The 30th, anyway, yeah.
So we did, we made it, we were collateralized, everything went well, and so we're in great shape.
Okay, good.
Any questions?
So we have money in the bank right now,
Yes, we
so I
have.
could get a heater from
And
mom.
investments and
Okay, good.
thank you.
Thank you. Number 6, Potter County Constable Precinct 4 to review the Tier 1 partial exemption racial profiling report. It's, is she here today? No. So recognized. Number 7, Randall Potter County Cooperative Drug Court Project. Terry, would you like to speak to this for a second?
Excuse me, thank you, Judge. This is our annual grant application to the Criminal Justice Division of the Governor's Office. So we're requesting $164,000 approximately this year. This is our 4th year of the drug court program. We have worked with 158 offenders and graduated right at 50 offenders over the last little over 4 years. So we feel like we've made really good progress. This money helps us fund a probation officer for the department. It also provides funding for a stipend for the Potter County and Randall County District Attorney's Office. It also pays for the criminal defense attorney that is part of the program. And one of the new things we're requesting this year is that we found that many of the people that enter our program have long histories of abuse, whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, and we are asking to provide counseling for those people, like we started that this year. Group counseling and individual counseling. So it's a very good program, it's very helpful.
Saw the PBS program spotlighting Judge Ford in his court. It's
Yeah.
very, very good program.
Yes, it was very professionally done piece.
It really was.
The counselor you referred to, would that be from a independent outside contractor?
Yes, it is.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve this?
I make a motion that we approve the resolution approving the submission of the grant application.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, raise your right hand. 0-2, do you have the original with you, or?
I have a copy.
Harry, if you'll let Richard know, he did a really good job on that PBS special as well.
I will tell him.
Yes.
I told him I will.
I will sign this and let Julie do her thing, and then we'll get back to it.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate you. Okay, number 8, Local Data Advisory Board to recognize and appoint me to replace Commissioner Morgia on Local Data Advisory Board.
So today, currently 2 court members sit on the LDAP, as it's called. Commissioner Church and I sit on that, and now obviously welcoming our new county judge, I think it's appropriate to transition those discussions to our county judge. I currently oversee the IT department and work closely with Jason, so I very much feel in the loop on those conversations.
So recognized, thank you very much.
Do we need to
Leave the motion.
have an official motion to appoint?
I suppose you probably should, since
Okay.
that's,
Do I have a motion?
just so we can find it correctly.
Okay.
I move that we appoint Potter County judge to the position, replace Commissioner McGear on the Local Data Advisory Board.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. 0. Should I have voted for myself?
It's fine, that's fine.
I've done it before. Okay, number 9, Texas Association of Counties to recognize Commissioner Morgia's invitation to join the Texas Association of Counties Leadership Education Committee.
So this is just more informational, but I don't expect the full court aware of activity that's happening on the court level. I received an invitation from the Texas Association of County, and they are strategically looking at their executive education committee, which I know there have been several members through Potter County that has participated in that outside of the court. So they are flying several county individuals and not just commissioners. We have tax assessors, constables, et cetera, that are coming in to reevaluate the program. The nice perk of that piece is this is not on the taxpayer dollar. They are reimbursing, and actually we're directly expensing them. So we are flying out to Austin a week from today for 2 days, start to reevaluate the program and see how often we would need to go out. The expectation is maybe a couple of times this year. But I will absolutely keep the court updated. I may be reaching out to those in the county that have participated in the program. I think there's very valuable insight here at the county. I just wanted to make everybody aware.
Great.
Any questions?
So recognized.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then number 10, Local Government Corporation to provide an update on the Local Government Corporation portion.
Thank you, Judge. So this again is informational. The LGC had met on February 11th, and a few items that took place in the public forum that I just want to make sure everybody's aware. The convention hotel at that point, we were expected to have some spec images of that 2 weeks out. We're scheduled to meet actually this Wednesday, and in that public forum, there may be potentially some renderings of what that will look like. So as that continues to evolve, I'll make sure and keep the court updated on that. As you know, there was a lot of communication about the termination of Wallace Vidali and what that impact was like on the LGC. As you know, we're not a voting member, we're ex officio is our seat, but there was no reply at that time given back to the LGC as that termination completed. And the really big theme that the LGC wanted to impress, certainly for the group, but from a public perception as well, is that that work is continuing. Lavin and Associates, which is the architect working on that, is a local company, and they're working with the LGC and the city of Amarillo. So the city employees have stepped in to keep that project moving in terms of the hotel and the parking garage as it sits today. So more of that as that continues, but I just wanted to put that on as a placeholder to keep everybody informed. And as those public renderings become available, I'll make sure that the full court has copies of that.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Okay, number 11, tax increment reinvestment zone number 1. Hear a report on the status of TIERS board and actions that this board is taking.
We could probably include number 12 as well. I'm one of 3 that represent the county on the TIERS 1 board. Hopefully you all understand what TIERS is and how it works. I won't go into a lengthy explanation of that to you. If you have questions about that, I'd be happy to talk to you. We're already into year 9 and of a 30-year program. And so 30 years is going to go by fairly quickly. So anyway, we have been meeting since I was appointed. We've met 4 times, I believe, and the last couple of times have related to the SPS, Xcel Energy building. And I would like to introduce and have Kelly Shaw from the planning department of the city of Amarillo come up and talk about that.
Let me just go ahead and read number 12 while we're at it. Number 12 is the tax increment reinvestment zone number 1. Recognize and review TIERS 1 project, Xcel Energy SPS headquarters development. Kelly Shaw, thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, and good morning, Commissioners, Ms. Tanner. As already stated, my name is Kelly Shaw with the City of Amarillo, and it was agreed to back in 2006 when the tax increment reinvestment zone number 1 was created. I'm here representing the tax increment reinvestment zone board. I'll say TIERS from now on. I'm here representing the board because they have recently reviewed and are recommending approval of a TIF assistance project. As was agreed to back when the TIERS zone was created, those projects then come in front of this body for review and comment. And after that process would involve, the project would then go in front of the city council for consideration of approval of the actual assistance that's being requested. So I thought what I would do is, I know we have some Xcel SPS representatives here today, Brenda Holland and Wes Reeves. They brought you guys some handout that pretty much has everything on it that I was going to go over, and has some really pretty renderings to show you what the building is going to look like. Had some very positive remarks from the TIERS board about that. I thought I'd just briefly describe the project, then briefly describe the assistance that's being requested, and then be available for any comments or questions as well as the Xcel representatives are here also. There's maybe something that I can answer. So, and feel free to interrupt me at any time. But basically, the project is on the 700 block of Buchanan Street. It's between 7th and 8th Avenues. The project's going to take up the entire block. Currently, there's Renaissance Apartments that are there on the north half of the block. South half of the block is basically parking lots. The project will take up that entire block, and the project itself is going to be a 7-story structure. And there's going to be about 114,000 square feet of office space that sits on top of a 3-story parking garage. That parking garage is going to have somewhere between 500 and 590 parking stalls. And hopefully, when we get the ballpark and everything going, some of those parking stalls will be available for use for those patrons. So it's a mixed-use project because it's going to have the office building, it's going to have the parking, and then on the ground floor level, there's also going to be about 5,000 square feet of retail space. So it really is a true mixed-use structure. As far as the materials, and you can look at the renderings that have been provided, but the materials basically are going to be earth tone precast concrete materials. You have the horizontal bands interacting with the vertical columns. There's going to be sort of a differentiation of the ground floor level by way of metal canopy. So you'll have that ground floor pedestrian area defined. And then also the building itself is not just gonna be one solid facade, but it is broken up by those vertical and horizontal elements. I think they've done a really good job in designing. The building itself was designed by Opus Design Build out of Minnesota. Jay Fournier was here, who was the architect on the project. He could be much more colorful on the actual building, but I think it's a good looking building. That's all I can say. If you look at it, the main focus of the building is going to be on that Buchanan 8th Street corner as you drive in from the south to downtown. That's where the main entry is going to be. That's where the retail is going to be. The glass facade, there's a lot of transparency built into the building. So the actual parking structure is kind of behind this focal point. But even if you, coming down, if you're going south on Pierce Street, if you look at that facade, which has the garage itself is stepped down from the office building on top. There are corner treatments for that garage. Again, there are the vertical columns that kind of protrude out from the garage. So it's not just a blank facade as you drive down that street. There'll be some red canopies or entrances also on the Pearson 7th and Pearson 8th Street corners. So they've done a good job of breaking the building up. And the first renderings that we saw, I thought it was a really good looking hospital. But this is really changed from the very first renderings that we saw. And again, had some very positive comments from the Tiers board as far as the aesthetics or the visual look of the building. It is new construction, so it will have to meet the downtown urban design standards. So along with the building, you're gonna have the streetscape elements around the building, which include at minimum, a 7-foot sidewalk, and most places it's gonna be more like 10 to 11 feet. There's going to be pedestrian trees, street trees that are spaced about 30 feet from each other. And there's also going to be pedestrian lights about every 55, 58 feet. So you're going to have the complete streetscape elements around the building, the street trees, the pedestrian lights, you're going to have benches, the planters. So really, really nice pedestrian experience as you travel around the building. They've also offset what would be the northeast corner of the building, about 30 feet or so, where that's going to be a pocket park, sort of it's going to be conducive to people, if there's going to be restaurants or something in there, maybe have some outdoor seating, something like that available in that area. So I think they've done a good job in not only technically meeting the design standards, but kind of going above and beyond that and creating a really nice pedestrian experience. And just for clarification, they're going to be responsible for 3 sides of that building, the 8th Street, 7th Street, and Pierce Street sides. That'll be the streetscape they're going to be responsible for. The Buchanan streetscape is going to be a part of the Texas Enhancement Program grant that we recently approved, which will be starting hopefully here pretty soon. Which is incorporating and constructing all of the streetscape elements, the trees, the lights, the benches, from basically 11th Street all the way north on Buchanan Street to 6th Street on both sides of Buchanan, for those areas that hasn't been done already. So technically speaking, that's not part of the project, but it is going to have to be coordinated with this project. That's basically a description of the building and the project. As far as the incentive itself, it's being requested. It's a 90% rebate of the tax increment that's generated from the increase in taxable value generated by the building. So it's basically the same type of agreement that's been requested before from the Tiers board. What's a little different, I guess, about this one is that the ones that this body has seen before have been 20-year rebate. This one is an 18-year rebate. And that's because we have had the tiers around for a little while now, and it's a 30-year tiers, so the tiers expires in 2036. So that's 18 years from now, so it's an 18-year rebate being requested. That incentive is being requested to basically help mitigate some of the expenses that are involved in the environmental remediations associated with the lot, the demolitions, and then just the land acquisition and actual construction of the building. It's also provided as an incentive to retain Excel SPS headquarters in downtown. There was an opportunity, a possibility for them to perhaps move west in West Amarillo, but felt it was very important for them to have a downtown presence, and this building addresses some of the issues that they were having in their current location, so felt it was an incentive that had merit. The Tiers Board considered it basically as something that met almost every single goal that's mentioned in the strategic action plan. But first and foremost, retaining and expanding the economic base that's in the downtown area. This certainly does that, and to retain that employment in the area as well. So felt it was a great project. The board really had a lot of positive things to say about it. The actual vote was a unanimous vote to recommend the project going forward. And so that's about all I have for you. If you have any specific questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those. Again, we have the Excel representatives here to help as well. So.
Kelly, do you know when it's gonna start? Construction?
Construction, I know that they want to start it soon, probably before next summer. I know they're wanting to actually move in by the summer of 2017. I think a completion date that's their kind of a target would be March, April of 2017. And the actual developer agreement that would be approved, they have a deadline of December of 2017. So they would, in order to meet that contract, that's the official date.
Do we know who's gonna build it yet?
Who's gonna build it? Well, it's the Opus Group is involved in that. They're sort of a one-stop shop for everything. They've designed it. I think they're going to be involved in construction.
Just a little bit to add to that. It is Opus Construction.
Okay.
They're both the architect and they'll be the construction. They will hire through bid process, most likely from the local area. I guess it'd be based on, the specific RFP process. And to add to what Kelly was saying is if everything goes right, we do intend to start the demolition in May. Based on all the approval process, we should close like April the 15th, and then move into the construction or the demolition portion in May of 15, and then hopefully move into the building by February of 2017 because our lease runs out in March of 2017 at the Chase Tower. So.
Yeah,
That's
at least running out fun.
very attractive facility. Excellent job. One of the questions I was going to ask, and you asked that for the local bid process. How many jobs do you think that would entail over the course of the completion of the project?
I really don't know. I can find out when we get back with you as to what the process will be as far as how many contractors are required to build. I'm sure it will be several. So.
Kelly, I do have to add, it is quite refreshing to get the update at the court level because Potter County obviously pays double to the TIF fund as it relates to these rebates or grants or whatever that structure would be. So it is very refreshing to get the update prior to the vote at the city level. So thank you for that because I know it's going to take time to get on the agenda. And the question I have, and keep me honest here, I'm looking through some of my notes on all the Tiers projects, whether it was a grant or a rebate, and this project by far exceeds a project that is taxable to Potter County. So the three big pioneer projects really being owned by the city will claim an exemption. So when the 30 years, which is now down to 18, expires, Potter County wouldn't recognize in terms of those particular projects. any additional tax increase. This project, certainly not the case. So this is really by far the biggest taxable project we have seen up to this date. Is that correct?
That's correct. Even so far as to say, you know, the block right now, half of it's city property, so not only do you get the structure on it, you actually get the whole block as far as land coming online for taxes as well as construction.
Yeah, so this is quite refreshing of a project to see, especially as it relates to the tax rolls and the taxpayers of Potter County, because, and Commissioner Lund, to be honest, because you were certainly a member of the court when the tiers was established, that really being the vision that Potter County chose to participate, expecting these type of increases when the 30-year came to date. And then the final question I have is, it lists some incentives, so Excel's applying for the financial incentives, this being one. It also lists incentives by the AEDC. What is that incentive that's being requested?
As far as I'm aware, that incentive, I don't know the exact amount, but I know it's having to do with also land acquisition and I think some of the demolishing of the buildings. I'm not as familiar with that as probably regular.
It's my understanding it's up to 1.5 million, and that is for the renovation of the landscape and the demolition, and to meet the urban standards, the downtown standards.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
I know Kelly, Mr. Shaw has mentioned the urban design standards. One of the things that was interesting, exciting to me was that they also gave it a unanimous thumbs up. So,
Thanks for mentioning that.
This is a great project, first one of its kind. An actual new office building in downtown since 1982. So if you haven't oriented where this building's going to be, it's going to be, when it's all said and done, it'll be right across the street from the Blue Ball Park there. Yeah, and Buchanan and Taylor Street, Pierce, going to be kind of busy in the next couple of years because all three of these projects are going to start basically at the same time.
We've got a lot of things that are going to be happening in this area very soon. We've got the streetscape project, we've got this project, we've got the downtown hotel, we've got the parking garage. So it may be a little frustrating a little bit, but the end is important. You know, you hear, when this was very first created, you heard the words synergy and critical mass, and things have to happen, and then things kind of take off in these downtowns that have had a lot of revitalization, and what you're seeing is really kind of the start of that, I think. And, I think you're going to see some of those words actually in action with some of the projects.
When we heard the reports from SPS and XL plus Opus and all of the people involved, one of the things that they did say, and I'm sure it's true, because I don't think this would happen without the other three phase projects that the city has already started.
Yes, they specifically stated, they were asked directly why were they doing what they were doing, and they said the other things that were going on is why they decided.
Well, I, for one, in 2036 will be 85. So if I'm not here, once we start collecting taxes, those of you who will be here, big raise for everybody, I promise. If I'm still here. So, thank you. We need to take a vote on this or just recognize it? Okay, thank you very much. Number 13, Potter County Memorial Stadium amended lease to consider and act upon approving the final version of amended lease with the Southern Independent League.
I gave you a copy of the draft and just kind of to review what has happened. they sort of, Southern League made a proposal for kind of to make some amendments to the lease, which basically we agreed with, modified, sent those back to them, and they responded, basically with the basic terms. The only changes they made in the basic terms that we sent back to them, but they wanted to kind of fine tune the language about determining whether something is work is considered an improvement or a repair, and so that is, I think that language is highlighted, and I think that's all perfectly acceptable to us. I have made one change in the draft that you have in front of you at Mike's suggestion. We did put some language in there that said there's some time frame that they propose, where when they do work, they will contact the facilities department, and they will together determine whether the work to be done is an improvement or not. And so we've asked that that be put in writing. And so we have facilities has 7 days to respond to, hey, we're gonna do this work, it's an improvement. And so we at Mike's suggestion, I think it was a great one, we require that clock doesn't start running until they make the notify us in writing. And that's the only change we made. Then if there's some disagreement, they can bring it to you, and we can talk about it.
Upon the receipt of the notice in writing?
Yes. So other than that, the agreement is.
They only need to bring it to us if the facilities say
Right.
no and they disagree with that.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So a couple of other comments that I might add just in terms of framework, especially for the audience, as we start to evaluate this lease contract amendment. So the parties obviously involved, Potter County and Southern Independent. The term that's included in this contract is October 1 of 14 through September 30th of 17, and then extension will be reviewed at the end of the 3-year term. So that is an important clarification that we'll obviously be working with Southern Independent over the next 3 years, and the idea is we'll know more 3 years from now than we know today, and really be able to dive into this contract and what the future for that stadium may be. The improvements, if you remember, we had a few discussion points at the court level of what counted, what didn't count, and where we landed is we would add in that dollar amount that is being disputed, that would just get rolled into these improvements. So in the contract, you'll notice that Southern Independent is required to make improvements in the amount of $68,000 in year 1. So there was $18,000 that was disputed. So that was rolled over into the first year of this contract, that being $68,000. And then year 2 and year 3 goes back to the $50,000 of improvements, which is very comparable to what had existed prior to. And Dave did point out on page 209 of that contract, several of the clarification items of what would be considered an improvement and what that process is. So I think the fact of having a process really will add a lot of clarity to that. And I have full confidence in the facilities department to be able to be prompt and get back with them. I do think it is a nice layer. If there is a disagreement, that will ultimately come back to the court and the court can decide that. So I do think that warrants good compromise on both sides of the house. So I did want to just add a few clarification items for the audience for this contract as it came back up for renewal.
I move that we approve the final version of the amended lease with Southern Independent.
A motion, have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor, please raise your hand. 0.
Dave, thank you for your work on this.
You're welcome. Thanks all for approving that.
Okay, number 14, Tri-State Fairgrounds Insurance Claim for Hail Damage. To consider and act on approval of the final agreement between the county and Tri-State Fair for sharing the cost of a third-party consultant.
There's really nothing much here that, of substance that affects us, but the parties thought that we ought to get an agreement about the splitting costs. And again, let me refresh your memory. We've agreed, well, actually, we're kind of almost bystanders in this because most of this discussion has happened between TAC, our insurance carrier, and Tri-State Fair. Basically, there's a disagreement about exactly how much work needs, about the claim on the roofs. And so, they agreed, say, let's get a third party engineer, neutral, to come in and kind of review it and give us some guidance on this. And so, we're fine with that. TAC is gonna cover the cost of it. So the agreement is the fair will cover half the cost of the new expert, and TAC will cover half the cost, but mechanically, we will pay it, and then TAC will reimburse us for it. But the fair thought, and I agree with that, thought we ought to get an agreement that sets that down. Basically, that's all this says. We went over it. In fact, I've already got a signed copy signed by them for the judge to sign and return back if they're ready to go, so.
Dave, I do have one concern on item 3 as it relates to the sharing of cost. And I'm just gonna read it just for the sake of discussion. The parties agree that the damage at the fairgrounds due to the hailstorm must be investigated and full remedy, and the parties desire to resolve all outstanding roof damage claims. That clause, if you will, to me signifies a direction of the Corps, and according to my knowledge, all that we've agreed on is to investigate and end it there. I am a little hesitant about the language to fully remedy and the parties' desire to resolve all outstanding.
Well, the question, I understand your concern. The question is, what does fully remedy mean? I mean, that's why we're having, and does it mean, how much of those roofs needs to be replaced fully remedy according to the insurance? And there are different views on what that means. And so hopefully this third party will kind of clarify that. I understand your reluctance, but this is not, I will say it's not committing TAC to do anything. TAC just said, hey, we'll take a look at it again, and well, let's get a third party to come in and check it out.
And my point of caution isn't necessarily as it relates to TAC, but more as it relates to the commissioner's thought and our intent. I think at this point, we've agreed to investigate, kind of period. And really any other language after that is yet to be determined. And I'm sure that's probably just a safety net that I'd like to have, but there is some language in here that does imply that we are positioned or prepared to do something different, and I'm not sure we are at this point.
Will this third party results be binding? I hope.
No, I don't know that the fact that that's been resolved, to tell you the truth.
What does this end?
I will confess I'm somewhat skeptical this is gonna help us resolve it. But it's a way forward, and it may just, picture a balancing scale with a certain number of opinions on one side and a certain number of opinions on the other, and the question is, I guess, which way is the scale gonna tip once you get this opinion?
Just be aware that it may come back just like it did before.
Yeah.
You're right back where you were.
So, but, we're, as I say, we're to some extent bystanders in this process. So I agree that I don't know that we're gonna get a magical solution. But, we'll at least say, we can say that, I'm kind of speaking for TAC here. Yeah, we can at least say that we've gone through everything we kind of explored.
We're moving the ball down the field.
Yeah.
Sure, and I wouldn't disagree with that. My only point is caution on some of the language that's used. The only thing we've agreed to is investigation at this point.
Sure.
So do we know when they're gonna do their little survey or whatever they're gonna do?
No.
Well, I'm setting that up. We were kind of waiting on the approval of this agreement, but we've got an engineering firm that both parties have in principle agreed to. And so as soon as you all approve this, and as soon as I get a letter that says they agree to that engineer, we'll get this going.
Can't you get them to agree that whatever this engineer says is the final deal?
I would be hard pressed to do that. No way to
A stipulation of both parties, say, this is it. Whatever this guy says, that's what we're gonna do.
Well, we can say that. I know that they're always gonna want those roofs fully.
Well, that's not gonna happen.
repaired. I know.
It's not gonna happen.
We only have so much time to decide what we have for this project.
We also have a critical issue here that David's gonna have to address with TAC on an extension on these claims, correct? once we get up toward that date to request an additional time.
Yeah, our 2-year period to repair is quickly coming to an end, which is crazy, but, yeah, TAC will need some in writing to extend that, but they have said we can do that. That doesn't seem to be a problem.
It'll be 2 years in May.
Going back to our concern, would it, how about, let me suggest, 3, let's just strike out the words "and fully remedied" in that. Would that be okay with, would that satisfy your concerns, Commissioner? I don't mind, I'm happy to do that, and then we just have to judge initial that, so. I agree, I don't think they'll object to that, if it makes us feel comfortable, I certainly don't.
Yeah, and so the remaining language would be parties desire to resolve all outstanding roof damage claims.
Yep.
So we're just taking
must
out
be
the part-
investigated and parties desire to resolve outstanding damage.
Yeah, and if we remove the fully remedy language.
Okay, we can do that, I'll do that.
Thank you.
I have a motion.
I'll make a motion on that.
Sure. I make a motion that we approve the final agreement between the county and Tri-State Fair for sharing the cost of a third-party consultant and Potter County funds to be reimbursed by the Texas Association of Counties.
Okay, second.
A motion and a second, all in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Number 15, Capital Credit Fund, acceptance of community and economic development funds. To consider and act upon accepting a portion of unclaimed capital credits and designating a community or economic development use for such funds as authorized by section 74.0602 Texas Property Code. I got this letter in the mail. I didn't know exactly what it was. I sent it to Carrie. She said we did this last year, so I said let's do it again. So there's stipulations, various stipulations on what we can spend the money on. I guess we can't go there until we know how much money we're gonna get. So is there anything you wanna add to that, Carrie? I'm not real sure what capital,
There's a
Means
list,
exactly.
and it's, they gave us a copy of the statute, there's a limit to the.
I have a couple of ideas of where I'd like to put the money, but, I'd rather not say yet until we know how much we're gonna get. So how do we go forth with this to,
We'll have to submit a letter to the comptroller to actually get the funds, and they'll know within the next 30 days how much will be available for us.
Carrie, just to confirm, who submits that letter?
I'll be happy to do that.
Do these funds have any restrictions on them, Carrie?
They do, and you'll see in the code behind, the letter, there are a number of things that they can be used for. And you can always just have some ideas, I guess, for what they want to use it.
okay, good. Okay, so I need a motion and a second on this then. Ready? I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to consider and act upon accepting a portion of unclaimed capital credits and designating community and economic development use for such funds. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor, raise your right hand. And also, may I add that Carrie will send that letter.
Thank you, Carrie, for doing that.
Okay, I don't think there's anything in the packet on this one. This is the Potter Randall Appraisal District Board vacancy. We've been talking about this for a month now. I know a guy named Gary Elliott who would like to fill that unexpired term. He is the assistant purchasing guy at KISD. You know him? Okay. And, he's a property owner and his taxes are paid in full and he doesn't have a record. He lives in Potter County. He does, so.
And he's willing to serve, Judge?
And he's willing to serve, and they meet quarterly. He's willing to just fill that expired term. So I talked to Mr. Childers this morning, and he said, go ahead and if y'all approve that, to let him know, he will put it on a nomination ballot, you bring it back to court, and we will nominate him and approve him, if that's okay. Everybody okay with that? Okay, I'll make a motion to consider Gary Elliott to fill that unexpired term of Jack McCullough.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. Number 17, equipment repair replace to authorize purchasing agent David Harder to seek bids for case management system for county and district court.
Good morning, Judge.
Go.
I'm sure. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk. I'm going to start out saying this is, I'm going to give you a little bit of history. This is the state of electronic filing in Clark County. This is Christy Poole. She is at this point, as in the last month, the supervisor over the civil department. But anyway, I think y'all remember in December of 2012, the Supreme Court did a bombshell and said that whole state of Texas was going mandatory e-filing, and they phased it in over a couple of years. We had been issuing since, I think 2003, and it had been pretty sporadic. But last summer, through the LDAP committee, a group of people went out and started looking at RFPs, requests for proposals. We interviewed lots and lots of people. We decided on one. As it turned out, I was at a conference in April. They had April of last year. They had a booth in the morning and the afternoon. The booth was gone. The people had been fired. The company had closed, leaving many counties in Texas having already paid millions of dollars. So anyway, we get to start over. At the same time this was happening, Christy and another, Tina Hoffman, assistant supervisor, started working with eFile Texas to get our processes going right. They made sure all the codes were compatible, all our filing fees were compatible, just getting ready. So we started full-time in November. Well, we didn't know what was gonna happen January 1st, but it did. And since January 1st, well, last year in the civil department, we had 1,500 civil new cases filed. Since this year, in 6 weeks, we have 316. That means if we continue on the same road, it's gonna be 2/3 increase in filings. We have been buying 35 cases of paper every 2 months, which means that's about $88,000, 88 pieces of paper every 2 weeks. Because before, the attorneys would bring us all their filings, and now it comes over electronic. We have to print it out and get it ready for our judges to send up. A few weeks ago, on a Saturday, Christy, they decided, they filed 24/7, 365 days a week. So she decided to get ahead of the story, and she came in on Saturday, and I want to tell her. But let me tell you a little bit more about Christy before she gets started. She has been in the district clerk's office for 16 years. She started as a young girl, and she's still a young girl. She has 3 boys. One's graduated from A&M, one is another's attending college, and she has a 3rd grader. Her husband works out of town a week long, so she takes care of these babies, and he comes back on the weekends. In 2003, she got Hodgkin's lymphoma and worked every day and is a cancer survivor. She is a valuable member of our team, and like I said, in the last month, she's become supervisor of the civil department. Anyway, that'll make your Saturday.
Well, we had several filings that were coming in, and they were just bombarding us. All the attorneys, they just filed, 24/7, like Caroline said. And so I had to come in on a Saturday, and just on one Saturday, we had about 118 e-filings to process. And just to accept or reject these filings, it took me 4 hours to do that. Then I came to work on, and that was just clicking and accepting. That wasn't printing anything else. So then Monday I came in and I had to then print all of the filings that we did that Saturday. And it took me from about 8 o'clock until approximately 5:30 just to print, just printing the paper itself. And then that doesn't even include, separating the documents out, spreading all the work. It's just enormous. It's just an enormous workload that we've encountered since this new mandated system. Prior to the e-filing system, it would take approximately, when we receive documents over the counter, it took about 7 to 8 steps. Now to do the new filings, it takes approximately 28 to 35 new steps to do this.
You wrote them down this morning.
Yeah, it's just enormous, overwhelming. It's just, until you walk in our shoes, it's just unbelievable the amount that we have to go through just to do this new state mandated e-filing.
You said it takes 12 steps to print one document. Anyway, and that's just to print it to get it ready. And I hate to tell this on us, but this is really the state of affairs in the district clerk's office. 2 weeks ago, I went in and there was a table probably about this big, about this high. And it was documents that had been accepted, and which means that we had to get a file mark copy, it goes back to the attorney. They've done all the issuance of citations and all that. So really, the lawsuit for every purpose was going. But the stack of papers still had to be entered into our case management system, our 1988 case management system. And then we had to go scan it and fax it and put it, do the poll punches, put it in the file and get it ready for the judges. So, I had one district judge say to me, and wasn't my husband, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Just tell them that. And I said, well, them is the Supreme Court. I don't know if I can tell them. And said, you don't have resources, you don't have manpower, we're just not able to do that. Well, that's just not acceptable. Julie and I talked about that's just not acceptable. But I do want y'all to recognize that we need resources, whatever it is. Whether it's new people, I don't want that to be the option. We asked Jason to start working on a in-house program. With this, I just want to have the opportunity to look at what it would cost for a clerk's option. When we started this thing a year and a half ago, it was our goal to get a integrated case management system. And realized that that was not the one out there. So Julie and I want to just focus on the clerks.
Yeah, and just to add to some, I actually walked over in her office yesterday and I said, or Friday, I was like, what is all this? And we are not, we feel the impact as well. And Caroline though is all courts, just a portion of our office is courts. And so we are feeling the impact as well. We don't have near the filings that they have coming in, but certainly there are different steps that it takes. And so each time we're touching these documents and we're having to, it's just this manual process, and not to mention that we're having to print off everything. I mean, they've already mentioned that, but, I was sitting there counting the processes too today as far as I didn't count all the clicks. But in order just to get it into the file, we're touching that one document at least 8 times. We print it off, we put it on the computer, we receive it, then if we've forgotten a little portion of the fee or haven't received it properly, then that's a bookkeeping nightmare for the bookkeeper, for the cashier.
That also didn't include just getting into the financial and chasing back this. That's a whole nother set of steps.
Right. So, just to back them up, like I said, we're not feeling the pain as much as she is, but we are feeling it. And that's just due to the caseload that they handle. We're only filing probate guardianship at this point in time, but it's certainly,
So what are you asking?
Well, I didn't want this to be saying that IT is not doing their job, because they are working very hard. 2 weeks ago, when I realized that we were absolutely drowning, that's when I said we need to look at every opportunity that's out there. So this is also to go out and look at what a bid would be from an outside bid.
Just for the clerks.
Yeah, just for the clerks. I realize that Jason and I and Julie and I probably haven't had the best communication about what he's doing and what his people are able to do. I was just throwing up my hands with these girls because they come in the morning and see, 100 new filings in one cry and go home.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm confused, because last we left it, there was a recommendation that was made to the court that you would move some dollars in terms of your fees and help support a position of someone that's gonna now craft technology that you can use in-house. So I'm a little surprised and kind of taken back by this new direction.
I don't know if it's exactly a new direction, I think it's a new opportunity to look at everything
Okay.
out there.
And
I
what,
still have,
one thing that I would add, this court very much, I would say, I feel confident in saying, we hear you. There have been dollars that have been put aside now. This is not the first of that conversation to help support that. The reality is this is the very same conversation happening in the district attorney's office and those courts. So the impact of this is huge for Potter County and what these dollars could be. And the last direction, I'm sorry. The last direction is that this position would be created that would ultimately help build some efficiencies in that. So this is very surprising to me.
So we need to get Jason in this
I'm trying to call you
conversation.
on Friday so that we can discuss this.
I'm happy to talk to you.
Patrick?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, I
You
mean,
did?
it is, and I discussed with Jason on Friday just a lot of things, and I think a lot of it is, communication on our part. Jason and I both agreed, and I communicated with Caroline too, so. But whenever we were doing the RFPs, we were asking for an RFP for the whole county. And now this would just be for the clerks, if we in fact decide to go that direction, maybe we just need to regroup. I don't know, I think maybe it's just some guidance.
I guess I wanted the court to realize that, it is a huge undertaking. We have stepped off and in faith are working with Jason. But 2 weeks ago I thought, well, what if it doesn't work? And that's when I put this on the agenda.
One thing to remember here, when we set out in the first of December and said, okay, we're going to build this for the clerks. And I've got, we said 18 to 20 months from when we started. We're 10 weeks into that. So, and the thing is that if we're going, if you got, the thing is, it's, I'll step back. If these ladies are not on board with this, with us continuing this project, it's not gonna be a success. So, and that's the thing. And the thing is, we've completely devoted resources to just building this. We've had other departments come to us. Elections is one. Lynn's come to us and said, hey, we want a mobile app. We want to build register people to vote these different ways and a new website for it, all that. I told her, we can't do it. I said, I can do it in 18 months. So we can't do it today. So that's being farmed out now. So we're going to go around and check to the vendor to do that. A couple of other departments have done that. So the thing is, we're dedicated to it. It's just a matter of, I think it's a little fear factor going on here initially, because I think these guys are being slammed.
Yeah.
And so, and the thing is, if my team is going to do this, then we're gonna do it. But what we don't wanna do is for my folks to invest 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever, into this, and they go back and say, well, never mind. And all these other departments that would put off all their projects, well, we're sorry we did that.
Right.
So,
I agree.
I have a what-if question. What if today we bought the Tyler Technology package? How long would it take to get that?
Probably a year.
yeah. So even if we run a check for the 6-figure, 7-figure, whatever, for an off-the-shelf product, we're looking at probably maybe 12 to 18 months to get that in. Plus the ongoing maintenance for.
Come on, Ron, I see you entering, squirming in your chair. You have any input on this?
Who is Herman?
Well, I'll just tell you, I had my communication with Jason on Friday. I said, I was a little concerned that maybe, and he explained it to me a little bit, but I was concerned that maybe his staff, and that's what I told him, I don't tell you how to run your office and you don't tell me how to run mine, but I was concerned that he didn't have enough staff to actually, do this program, because we have had maybe a lack of communication, and that's, I certainly could have picked up the phone and talked to him as well. But, he assured me that day, he said, we do have the staff that rotate, but, when it comes down to it, as far as we want a system that's better than what we have, and, my expectations are very high, And I told him on Friday, I said, we want all the bells and whistles that we can see on these other, you know, when we go and we do those demos and stuff. And because the goal of this system should be to ease up the time on our staff in the manual processes that we're having to do and allow that staff to, you know, do maybe some historical projects or those kind of things. So, you know, that was one of my main concerns, and, you know, and I told him I'm not very forthcoming in just telling people how I feel, unless you're my husband. And so I felt, you know, I really just, you know, I asked you some other questions that were just kind of maybe a myth or, you know, myth or truth type thing, and so.
Do you feel better is the question?
I do feel better, and, you know, I mean, we were wondering about whether or not it was gonna, you know, we wanna make sure that it's gonna, we want to make sure it's going to interface with the sheriff's system, and that it's going to interface with what the DA and county attorney are trying to purchase, and he told me that they would. Some of the things that maybe Caroline and I didn't understand, I'm not going to speak for Caroline, but I know that maybe I didn't fully understand.
So I'm a little confused there.
I think probably a lot of it was just, maybe we just needed a better report. And so.
So would it be presumptuous to ask you guys to just meet weekly? As this is kind of evolving and shaking out, and that if this conversation needs to come back to the table, then really having all of you as partners saying, we want to use this other direction, and this is the why. Because right now it feels a little knee-jerk, and that we're nervous, and rightfully so. I don't want to diminish that, but it feels very knee-jerk because of this workload.
I think Julie and I talked Friday. You know, the department is divided, I have divided up into people who write software, people who fix things. Okay. Julie had 2 or 3 of my fixers over in her office for a couple of days last week handling some issues, and she put words in your mouth, but she did the math and said, wow, if I've got 2 of your people over here, my software's not being built. No, right, which is not the case. I mean, there's, you know, they're completely separated.
So yeah, I think it sounds like the left hand is not talking to the right hand, to the degree of maybe coming together and meeting on a regular basis and sitting down and get all the parties in that room that you can hash this out and then some consensus and bring it back to us. But it seems like then, it sounds like you got at least 3 different versions out there or thoughts.
Well, but I think it was also important for maybe Caroline to bring to you guys the growing pains that she's feeling in her office. Because, you know, when you walk in there and you see these stacks of paper, and these are things that, you know, I just think it didn't hurt to say anything today.
No, I don't want you to think the work's not being done. Because these stacks of paper are things that they're entering when they have time. You know, all the parties have been notified, all the attorneys, the citations have been sent. It's just now that second part of entering into our case management system, the history of what's happening.
So if we could do something today to help you, what would that be?
Well, I would love for y'all to have a couple of hours and come over and file. You could, you could do indexing and scanning. I guess, just to know and support us in here, I don't know if it would be beneficial to say to Tyler or whomever, how much would just a clerk's package be? And then, so we're gonna back Jason and continue.
Well, one thing about it also, if we buy something off the shelf, for example, this Tyler product or something, we're not going to be able to make that integrate into prosecutor's package, into, you know, other packages that we have here. The agreement that we're looking at with the CUC for the packages, without getting all technical on you, it gives us what's called the source code, which lets us modify it and lets us integrate with other things. These other vendors like Tyler, for example, they're not going to give us source code. We're not going to be able to.
And that's what we want. We want source code.
Right. Right. If we buy something off the shelf like this, at least one department is going to have to enter things in 2 different places when it's all said and done. That's what
I know it's not possible, but I would love to have everyone on the same case management, but it's just not doable. It's not. I've talked to a lot of people. It's not doable. So you guys want your own. Randall wants his own, and Randall's would include,
I guess,
the DA, the county attorney, and JP's.
Well, I guess to explain, you know, I'm coming from a very ignorant perspective on here. Why is it not possible to get everybody under the same.
They each have a different vote. They don't know what.
Day is long.
Not every-
How much time do you guys work?
Yes,
It's like yours doesn't have the county
Their
clerk or
preference,
district
their
clerk
own.
package. The one that you want does not have the urban county thing, does not have a county clerk.
It does, it's in the,
Oh,
It's a preference.
you don't, and, it hasn't had good, publicity and
Right.
results.
Right.
There's not one vendor who can offer the best product for each department, for each office. The best prosecutor package doesn't come from Tyler. The best clerk's package doesn't come from somewhere else.
Can you do it?
So, that's what we're
That's where we would-
that's
He's doing the clerk's portion of it, but not the whole county.
not the whole county. We
But-
don't have the resources to build it fast enough to get it up so that everybody's not trying.
Right, but the problem is it's gonna take you 18 months or so. You get it, in the meantime, you're drowning.
Yeah. You know, my husband says he always tries to solve the problem, and I guess bringing this up here today is not really solving the problem.
So you're looking
It's
for an
making
interim
us
fix?
aware.
Well, just an awareness and, well, we're gonna get it down fixed pretty soon. Some of the stuff he's working on right now is gonna,
I'm telling you, drowning in the course of this.
you know, I'm hoping 2 more months I can come and give him the next state of E-file.
That'd be great to keep it updated.
Well, Caroline's feeling the growing pain, I mean, from her staff, you know, when you walk through and people are wanting to quit and they're wanting to, you know, cry. Well, we cry, that's how we feel.
There's no crying in county government.
No crying.
Why do you think the IT department stays high? But, if we need to look, this, it's not my department, but, you know, if we need to look at some temporary staffing for someone to get us through, you know, a period of X number of months or something like that. That's totally my suggestion off the cuff.
Yeah,
But,
So that's
Will
what
this ever change?
I think it will.
Better.
So Julie, you're feeling the same growing pains, just not to the extent that Caroline is.
No, and that's just due to the number of cases and the type of cases in Caroline. When it became mandated, you know, like she said, they've been doing it for a long time, but the mandate, everybody has to e-file, or the attorneys have to e-file. And so, you know, you're feeling it and you're seeing it, and, you know, it can be overwhelming when you're seeing all this stuff in your queue on the computer, and, you know, it's like, it's not, I'm sure for them, they probably thought they could get one filed and another one pops up. It's probably
So
why
did y'all do,
it's
just out of curiosity, did y'all do an increase in your budget for paper?
We felt like what we had with our budget, we could continue to work, but that may change, Kim.
We did.
I was gonna say, yeah,
And y'all gave us a new, copy. So, anyway, I guess we'll give you an update.
So, just a final question, Caroline, if you were a queen for a day, this was an interim fix, what would you ask for?
World peace.
Well, you know, I wish we had an integrated system model. I do, Randall County does, they started a long time ago, they had an old system that was able to be integrated. It is integrated, I think they're happy with it, but I'm having another.
They don't have it there in the cases.
No, they don't, in fact, I looked it up this week and Dave was wanting to have an idea of that. But anyway, thanks for feeling and hearing our pain.
I guess, this is a silly question, I guess. But you were mandated to go E-file. There must have been a reason for that. The thinking must have been we're gonna reduce paper.
Well,
And yet you're
federal
saying
system has
that
been
we're
doing this.
increasing paper.
Yeah, the federal system has been doing this for quite a while. They're on one system over the whole United States. And I'm not sure that the Supreme Court was really in touch with what counties are doing. I mean, they're, you know, we got a survey just this last week, how's it going? How much you spending, do you like it, do you hate it?
Computers are supposed to get rid of paper.
Process is get rid of paper.
And I think if you ask the attorneys over there, the real mixed message, I'm not sure. But anyway.
Are you okay with today?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yes. Because I've told Caroline in the beginning, I'll pretty much follow wherever she needs to go since her office is has more cases than we do, so.
So you guys are talking, you're meeting, right? Regularly, and,
Right now,
Just kidding. I think before the end of the year, we're gonna want family fun too.
Right.
So,
Now, come on, you've been ready to.
Okay, so we're not gonna take any action on number 17. Number 18, formal bid award to consider and act upon awarding formal bid number 1107-15, road materials to the lowest responsive vendors listed on the award recommendation sheet.
This is our annual bid we do every year for road materials for this summer for Road and Bridge. And, all these vendors, were vetted by Sebastian in our office, and, we're asking you to award it to the selected vendors. We are taking a look on everything that came.
That's good with that.
Any questions? Sebastian, you're good with everything?
I make a motion that we award formal bid 1107-15 road materials to the lowest responsive vendors listed on the recommendation sheet.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Number 19, real estate sale, to consider and act upon the following in relation to the real estate contract for 2404 Southwest 6th Avenue. A, approve amendment number 2 to the real estate contract that would extend the elevation period but keep the closing date the same. And B, authorize Potter County judge to sign any closing documentation related to the sale.
I received a phone call from the real estate agent, brokering the deal, and they want a little more time to evaluate the property. And he said some of that was this recent flood, they want to get some updated numbers. But they want to keep the closing date on, March 20th. So this will just extend the feasibility, study to March 6th, but it wouldn't extend the closing date again. So they would have till March 6th to decide if they want to purchase it.
Okay.
And then B,
What was the February date?
it was the evaluation period, but since that, it was just the evaluation, but since that flood, they want to look at it a little longer.
Is there a chance you're gonna change their mind?
It didn't sound like it, but, he couldn't tell me. And then B, if you decide to approve A, B, we need the judge to have the authority to sign closing documents.
Okay, so we need to approve one at a time.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion on letter A?
Move we approve amendment 2 to the real estate contract that would extend the evaluation period, but keeping the closing date March 20th.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion and second, all in favor, raise your right hand.
In reference to part B, I'll make a motion authorizing Judge Tanner to sign any closing documents related to the sale.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and second, all in favor, raise your right hand. Number 20, asset disposition, to consider and act upon allowing the sheriff's office to dispose of Potter County number 20531 body armor vest as it was destroyed in a fire. Why do you have to destroy it? It's already destroyed.
Well, this is more for me to be able to take it off of his asset, record, because it was destroyed. I need Commissioner's Court, approval.
Just bury it.
What happened?
I don't know, I was just approached by them that there was a vest in a house fire that had burned up.
That was over 2 years ago.
Over 2 years ago?
But they still have the vest in their possession, but they wanted to destroy it and get it out there. So that's what.
I make a motion that we approve disposing Potter County number 20531 body armor vest from inventory.
Second.
Okay, a motion and second, all in favor, raise your right hand. Item 21, case management software, to hear a report on the status of negotiations with the Council of Urban Counties for case management software and take any action necessary.
Back in December, you had an agenda item that allowed the purchasing agent to begin negotiations with the CUC for 2 softwares. One was the prosecutor package from CUC, and the other was the courts package, but just for the JPs. And so for 2.5 months now, we've been going back and forth. We've had a negotiation meeting, and I think we will be close to having the final documents ready for either the first meeting in March or the second meeting in March. And so really, this is just to ask the executive director of the tech share portion of this wants to come meet with you all as a group And I need direction if you wanna do one-on-one meetings, or you wanna have a special meeting or something prior to that commissioners court meeting where you take final action. So I kinda just need feedback from you all.
I would rather have a special meeting, get it all done at one time. It's a, whatever you guys want to do. What do you think?
I think that'd be fine.
So could we do that the week before the commissioners court meeting? Would that be okay?
So the first week in March?
Yeah, either that or yeah, I still don't have one document that we're working on, but I'll coordinate that with you so we can get it posted.
As long as it's Thursday and Friday.
Thursday.
That's what the first week of February is.
Okay, I'll coordinate the schedules and try to make sure.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So we don't need to act on this right now. Okay, number 22, employment items. To consider and act upon the following employment item, road bridge department, the new employment of Damian Eric Alcala as a replacement for David Ferguson as maintenance technician. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the employment item for road and bridge as presented.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0. Otter County projects.
Just need to bring you up to date on a few issues that's changed, make you aware of some things. The Fire Station 6 project, we kicked it off this past week. We had a pre-construction meeting. Commissioner Kelly was there. We had right at approximately 30 people present. And that was good to see that meeting at a pre-construction meeting. Fire Station 3, we are currently in our design development, 100% design development meetings right now. The last of the meetings will be held this coming Thursday with the committee, and I'll let each and every one of y'all know if that does change. Once these meetings are over, I'll be issuing a notice to proceed to the architect to enter into construction documents. Commissioner Murguia, you had asked a question some time ago about making changes to a project. We're at that point right now. If there's anything that you want to change, it needs to be done now. Once you get into construction documents, you really don't need to go back and start doing so. This meeting will be very informative to each and every one of you. I think you'll see what goes on when we go through these design projects.
And Mike, just to confirm, as part of those meetings, there'll be dollar amounts that are shared of what the
Yes,
project
we have
costs.
each one of your meetings that we have scheduled between now and 100% conclusion, you'll have opinion of probable cost. What was presented to us last week, we went through and actually reduced 75,000 off of that. And it went up,
in the right
and we
direction.
come back, so it's one of those issues we kind of keep working back and forth until we feel comfortable where we're at with the project.
And just to confirm, Carrie, have you attended one of those meetings, or will you? Okay, all right, thank you.
Another item on the Fire Station 3, one thing that I'd like to change, Judge Tanner, I visited with her last week, is we set these meetings up. I got a 2-week period. This right here has really pushed this timetable way out until August. If there's any way possible, you want to address what your intentions were.
I would like to have a special call meeting to, and you might want to tell me exactly what, because I don't have it in front of me. Just a special call Commissioners Court meeting for the public or
An
whoever.
informative meeting, to where the architect can come here instead of us holding these one-on-one meetings for 2 weeks.
It will save a lot of time.
It'll save us a lot of time. Park Hill, Smith and Cooper would come here to the Commissioners Court. They would make their presentation. Your next presentation will be 50% construction documents.
Is that agreeable with all y'all? And it would move everything up.
Yes, it
See
would.
that
It kind of
start
got
date,
expedited. They still feel that they could, one of the things you're looking at right now is with this being extended out, you're looking to have your final opinion cost in August. Y'all need that number for your budget. So that's why we want to try to move it back to get you a good number. If you so choose at that point there, then you actually just go out to bid and get your bids in to have a true dollar for the cost. City streetscape, Mr. Shaw was addressing this a while ago. I've been working with the city engineers. Kerry received notice this past week of what's going to be happening here on 6th Street between Fillmore and Pierce. I have a meeting with them tomorrow to review their plans, to go over to see how they're gonna affect our precinct officers. So that'll be starting here within the very near future. Judge Chandler, do you want to address it?
Yes, right after the meeting today, I would like to have a 10-minute meeting with the strategic planning committee, just right down the hall here, just for a minute, just to go over some direction that we're going in with this, okay? Is that all you have, Mark? Okay, thank you, sir. Do I? You feel slighted? There's nothing on executive session. Jail report is 480. We have 84 females, 7 people are in Childress. 7 females in Childress. Okay. Any county insurance items? Okay. Agenda items for next time?
I would just say, Judge, to be cautious to everybody outside. The snow has shifted dramatically. There's a lot more out there. It's terrible.
Okay, there's nothing else. I adjourn this meeting. Have a great day.